Alright, I'm back and I'm ready to record. Good afternoon, spiritual warriors. Happy Sunday out there for those out there who are trying to enjoy their day. Getting some sun, sitting in the grass, doing etc. I don't know. But yeah, I wanted to touch down and make another video and talk about something that actually was in my head that, I think Sunday is the perfect day for me to drop what I'm about to talk about. And I want to talk about something specific today. And today, what I'm going to talk about is heavily narcissistic people or narcissists and how they actually commit the 7 deadly sins while they're doing all the messed up stuff that they do. Now, see, it's something that hit me when I was sitting around thinking about it. I was sitting and I was wondering, I was watching TV and they were talking about the 7 actually deadly sins. And then I was sitting there thinking about it. And then I'm like, is there a chance that heavily narcissistic people or narcissists actually commit the 7 deadly sins, possibly committing one after the other, if not all? And I've come to the realization that, yeah, they actually do. And I'm going to actually show you how they kind of do, or I'm going to kind of explain it how they do it now. All right. Okay, let's start with the first sin that they actually do. I start with pride. Pride, let's be real. Heavily narcissistic people or narcissists, they have a superiority complex. I mean, correct? They think they're better than you, smarter than you, more talented than you, etc., etc. They think they're better. They just think they are. And on top of them thinking that they're better and superior to you, are they not usually entitled on top of it? They feel like everybody owes them something. And, they start becoming very, very angry people when you're not paying homage to their ego, when you're not giving them what they want and what they need. They start to punish you. And yeah, the great stuff, right? Let's move on to the next one. The next one is envy. How they have jealousy over others' talents, possession, status, relationships. These are all things for them to basically envy. And, when they envy these things, they start to, heavily narcissistic people and narcissists, they tend to build up hatred for when they envy someone. So if they start envying you, eventually it also turns into hatred for you. So, yeah. The next one, let's talk about lust. Now, it doesn't seem so obvious at the beginning, but think about how they're so impulsive and they tend to get themselves into a lot of trouble. They tend to chase their desires. That is the lust we're talking about. And also, if you want to talk about lust is also craving attention, admiration, lust for power in general, instant gratification. All of these things are forms of lust. They need to feed that ego, and they're going to feed their ego with all these things. They have that lust that keeps them craving for all that stuff. Now we move on to sloth. They're lazy through manipulation. You will notice that a lot of the heavily narcissistic people or narcissists, they're manipulative as hell people. And, they tend to kind of manipulate other people into doing things for them, some of their chores, some of their work, help them when they're starting to mess up in life. They pass these things on through their sloth. They don't tend to fix these own things. They're lazy. And they also, the other thing that they do that is sloth, which I actually find incredibly hilarious, that a narcissist do this thing where they don't want to learn so others do it for them. So they have this habit of certain things, they suddenly don't know how to do it. Oh, suddenly I don't know how to look up that stuff and get it all working on the computer correctly. Or, oh, I don't know where all that stuff goes, so I can't put it up. You're going to have to help me put it up. You see what I'm saying? Is that, they don't want to learn, so they always going to need your help or outright have you do it. So yeah, that's another issue. Now let's move on to gluttony. Gluttony always wants more in general. Hungry hippo always wants more. Parasitic as hell, takes from others with little or no return. Pretty much they end up taking from a lot of people with barely nothing to give back, if anything at all. There's a good chance that when you've dealt with a heavily narcissistic person or else a narcissist, you'll be getting little by little over time until you get nothing. They want it all, so they'll end up taking it all if you allow it. You will end up pretty much, feeding their appetite. Another thing that I was talking about with the other ones, I forget which one I was talking about, but yeah, pretty much you're going to be feeding their appetite, which also kind of feeds into lust, is the one I think I was covering about that, where they're hungry, they're always going to want more. Nothing's never good enough. The attention's not good enough. They need more. You actually giving them stuff, it isn't good enough. They need more. You actually trying to express love and help and take care of them, it's not enough. They need more. And let's move on to the next one. Let's talk about how they are greedy people in general. Do I even need to point this out? You see what I'm saying as I'm going through the sins? If you look at the heavily narcissistic person or the narcissist that you're dealing with, how many of these sins has that person actually broken? You can look back to it, and as I'm going through all the sins, you're like, holy cow, they really do break all the 7 deadly sins. Now, their greed is, everything is transactional. That's how their greed kind of comes into play. It starts out as transactional as you trading with them, but remember, the greed's going to take over, and they want you to be giving them stuff while they pretty much barely give you nothing. That's the greed and gluttony working together to where eventually that actual hunger and that greed ends up to where they start shorting you. They start scamming you. They start taking stuff from you to the point they might start stealing from you. Greed is a mug, Yeah, and on the other thing, with what I was also saying about how greed is transactional, that means on every level, as in from respect to support, peace, decency, or manners. All that stuff. That's all up for negotiation when you're dealing with a heavily narcissistic person or a narcissist. If you don't have leverage, you probably won't see those things. So, yeah. And let's move on to the last one. The one that, every narcissist is going to be guilty of, the very last one that I saved up. And we saved the best for last because it just had to be this way. And the last sin we're going to talk about is wrath. Now, if anyone that's been dealing with a heavily narcissistic person or a narcissist in general, you've already felt their wrath. I don't even need to break it down for you. I didn't even have to probably break down most of these sins for you because of the fact if you were dealing with a narcissist, the moment I said it, you felt it. And let's move to what pretty much the narcissist does with wrath. They're vengeful over perceived disrespect. Vengeful over hurt feelings. Vengeful if you don't give them what they want. Vengeful if you walk away. The main theme of this is vengeance and punishment. And they love that stuff, They love the vengeance and the pain and the wrath and, trying to give you your just desserts. And if you didn't actually do what they say, or if you make them feel some type of way, hurt their feelings or anything, they're going to retaliate. Even if you don't realize that the narcissist retaliated on you, or the heavily narcissistic person, I promise you that there was retaliation for whatever slight that they thought that you did to them. Even if it's just a perceived slight, it does not matter. In their mind, in their delusion, you have crossed the line, and now you must feel the wrath. So, yeah, I think I did a good job covering that for the most part, talking about how heavily narcissistic people, or narcissists in general, end up committing the 7 deadly sins. And I would say for people out there, try not to take it too personal, because these type of people would end up committing these sins on anyone that is too close to them, family members, friends. They're going to end up running through this list that I just pretty much covered, those 7 deadly sins. And the funniest thing is, if you sit and you analyze for long enough, you will notice how one sin feeds into the other sin. Like, sometimes their envy ends up jumping straight to wrath, because their envy is, you see what I'm saying? You could, write down a list and then cross them things apart and see how they sometimes are committing 2 of the sins from the 7 deadly sins at the same time, or sometimes 3. It'll blow your mind. But yes, I want to wrap this up. I need to get up off of this grass anyway. For some reason, the bugs are drawn to me. They're flying to me, the bees and the little stuff, man. So I've enjoyed nature for enough for now. I'm going to get back and do something fun for myself after recording this, and probably post this, because there's someone out there that probably needs this. But in the meantime, until I return with some more stuff for the spiritual warriors out there, a little more knowledge they're not going to teach you in college.